To call Mythmatch just a match 3 puzzle game would be to do it a huge injustice. In reality, Mythmatch is a genre mashup of town builder, match 3, and arcade minigame collection. And you play as the goddess Artemis, who, is in the early stages of her career. Of course, you find yourself wrapped up in the world of Greek mythology and all the other spiteful gods. But as Artemis, and someone who, isn't the big goddess of the hunt already, she's looked down on. See, you have to make a name for yourself, and you'll very quickly find yourself on the island of Ithaca. And now anyone who knows anything about Greek mythology knows that this is where Odysseus lived, and on Ithaca is a rundown town full of people. If you're familiar with the Greek epics and poems and mythology, then you'll know what I'm talking about here. But that is kind of where our first linchpin starts. If you are a fan of Greek myth, this is great, because this is not just a quick once-over veneer of Greek mythology. This is a really deep dive, and you'll find characters here that are secondary in the books, in the Odyssey, in the Iliad. And in fact, the whole game is based on the fact that during the Trojan Wars, while all the men like Odysseus are off, in Ilium, or Troy, fighting the Trojan War, all the women are at home, and that's what this is about. You'll roam around the island helping Penelope and Melanthe and all the women who have stayed behind to rebuild the island, and you'll get points for it. And not only that, but, they each have a building. One of them's a blacksmith, one of them, like Penelope, of course, will, weave things for you, grow things for you. And this is where the town builder kind of automation comes in, because they will produce things that you need. And you need to collect a lot of things in Mythmatch to progress. To rebuild a bridge, for example, you might need a ball of wool and some wood, but a ball of wool can only be made by, you might guess it, matching 3 sheep's wool. You do that in this kind of top-down overworld Stardew Valley style by going around and shooting things with your bow and then shooting them into other things, and when you have 3, they upgrade into the next product. And that's the overworld, but you'll then be thrown into mini-games to fight for your place on Mount Olympus. So there's a real day-night cycle in the game, and every now and then, when you've collected enough points, you can challenge the next person on Olympus to become, a better god. And you have to beat them in some kind of game. And in these games, there's a sort of match 3 where the sort of sheep and the mythological creatures are kicking out items. And if the items fill up the grid that you're trying to battle on, then it's game over. But there's also auto-battlers and arcade games. There's all kinds of games when you go to Mount Olympus. When you go back to the overworld and you're on Ithaca and you're helping people out, it's much more Stardew Valley style, but it's still match 3, and that's kind of where the absolute genius of this game comes in, because as Artemis with your bow, you're shooting items into other items to turn them into other items, and so the whole game has this match 3 kind of concept. It's built around this. However, I'm not even particularly a match 3 fan, and that's where the real kicker comes in. I just gave this a go on the... Well, we'll talk about it in a second, because the dev team is very, very experienced and good, but I gave this game a go. I don't really play match 3, and the thing is, this is a game that is a match 3 game, but it's going to appeal to you even if you don't play match 3, because if you're into Greek mythology or history or anything like that, the characters here are brought to life with just such personality. The writing in this game is great. There's cutscenes. There's so much polish here that I was kind of surprised. Like, honestly, I was surprised looking at the images of the game. You know how many games come out these days. It's very hard to tell which one is just an asset flip and which one's actually had years of, hard work put into it. And this is one of the latter. It's very, very good. And the reason for that, as I kind of alluded to earlier, is that it's made by Team Artichoke. Now, this is a studio out of London, but it's been started by Yu, who worked on Little Big Planet, Ratchet & Clank, and Knights and Bikes. And some of the other developers worked on Luna the Shadow Dust, Moonglow Bay, all sorts, Paleo Pines. This is a team full of women, and it's a game about women. but it doesn't exclude men. And it's these games I mentioned that some of these developers have worked on really kind of exemplify the kind of game this is. So if you played Knights and Bolix, you played Luna, you played Moonglow Bay, you know the sort of game you're in for. It's kind of cozy, but it's not boring. It's witty, it's funny, it's just hilarious, and it's addictive. You know, when you go up to Mount Olympus, it's like a modern corporate office, and the theme that runs through this is very sort of anti-capitalist, a very kind of, you know, the gods are the cutthroat corporate overlords, and, you know, you're going around as Artemis just with the mere mortals on Ithaca, rebuilding the island and all of the structures on the island, and you kind of come to realize that you don't need to be this huge god that sits and plays with the other vindictive little gods. You're happy just helping out the people on the island. It's a game that's very much rooted in community and friendship and all of those ideas, coziness, but again, without the trappings of, you know, sometimes cozy game, in quotations, is just a term for boring and not a lot going on, just a copy of Stardew Valley or any other number of games that are the same ilk. But this really isn't. You know, this is full of personality, and yes, it does focus on women and anti-capitalism in that, but again, without going too far it's not beating you over the head with some kind of agenda. And so I would say that, you know, Mythmatch is a really good pickup if you're the sort of person who enjoys Match 3. Even if you're not the sort of person who plays a lot of Match 3, this does it in such unique ways that actually it's incorporated really well. It's not just a kind of Candy Crush float, because actually that part of the game is a very small part. A lot of it is exploration and things that I was not expecting. So who is this game for, and is it worth your hard-earned time and money? Well, this game is for anyone who loves Greek mythology, anyone who likes Match 3, anyone who likes cozy games, and any combination of those. It has a part automation, it has, you know, things you can upgrade, and then the mortals of Ithaca will be like, hey, I grew this crop for you, I traded this for you, and it's all based on real Greek mythology, and some of it is very in-depth, and I speak as someone who studied this at university. So this is a great pickup. If you have no interest in any of these genres, then of course it's probably not going to interest you, but I would say that if you're watching this review at this point, you're probably the sort of person who'll like this. And at under $20, this is an easy recommend at full price if you're interested in it. But there's no harm in waiting for a sale if you're hard up, because while this is a great game, there is no reason to absolutely run out unless you really love Greek mythology and Match 3.